Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I now present to you the Deputy Chancellor of Monash University, Dr. Geoffrey Knights, who will open this graduation ceremony.
Graduands and guests, Deputy Vice-Chancellors, Vice-Chancellor, distinguished visitors, it's indeed a pleasure on behalf of Monash University to welcome all of you here this afternoon to this graduation ceremony. This day marks an important milestone in the lives of all our graduands, and particularly those of you here today, and I extend to you all my congratulations on your achievement. To reach the stage of graduation, you need not only years of study, particularly in your particular professional area, but you also need a good deal of support. And I'm sure that all the graduates here would like me to comment on two main support groups that you have had through your entire course. First of all, the faculty staff who have taught you, And secondly, the majority of people here in the hall, parents, friends and family. No student gets through a medical course without some degree of stress. And I'm quite sure that you would like me to place on record your appreciation to both those groups. With the authority of Council, I shall now confer certain degrees upon all candidates present who have fulfilled the conditions prescribed for admission to these degrees as set down by the Council of Monash University, and are therefore entitled to be admitted to the rank, privileges and responsibilities of these degrees. And I shall award diplomas to those present who have fulfilled the conditions prescribed for the award of these diplomas. I shall also confer degrees upon and award diplomas to those others listed in my copy of the graduation programme. I now call upon Professor Robert Porter, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Mr. Deputy Chancellor, I certify to you and to the Council of Monash University that all candidates from the Faculty of Medicine, including the Sub-Faculty of Nursing, now to be presented, and those others listed in your copy of the programme, have fulfilled the conditions prescribed by the Council of Monash University for admission to the degrees and for the award of the diplomas indicated in the programme. Would all candidates for degrees and diplomas of the Faculty of Medicine, including the Sub-Faculty of Nursing, please stand.
With the authority of Council, I admit you to the degrees and award the diplomas to which you are entitled. And I admit to the degrees and award the diplomas to which they are entitled those others listed in my copy of the graduation programme.
Please be seated. Graduates and diplomats from the Sub-Faculty of Nursing of the Faculty of Medicine will be presented to the Deputy Chancellor by Professor Joan Bowers, Head of the Sub-Faculty of Nursing.
Mr. Deputy Chancellor, I present to you graduates and diplomats from the Sub-Faculty of Nursing who have been admitted to degrees and diplomas today. First, from the Diploma of Applied Science Nursing, Elisa Haberston. From the Bachelor of Nursing, Tracy Lee Ann Dean. Jeffrey David Edwards. Barbara Jane Green McLaren. Adrian Charles McDonald. Melinda Jane Meehan. Janine Mary Nottingham. Kelly Louise O'Reilly. Ray Vera Pagan. Following are receiving the Bachelor of Nursing post-registration, Melissa Jane Dart. Emma Ruth Design. Susan Mary Flynn. And we have one person receiving the graduate diploma in nursing, Rhonda Faye Smith. Mr. Deputy Chancellor, that concludes the presentation of graduates and diplomates from the Subfaculty of Nursing.
Graduates and diplomats from the Faculty of Medicine will be presented to the Deputy Chancellor by Professor Robert Porter, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Mr. Deputy Chancellor, I present to you graduates and diplomats from the Faculty of Medicine who have been admitted to degrees and diplomas today. For the degree of Bachelor of Medical Science with Honours and Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, David Norman Baldwin. Benedict Cashing Chan. Anwan Lay. For the degree of Bachelor of Medical Science with Honours and Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery with Honours, Rachel Louise McElry. Hung Tae Nguyen. Thomas Jersey Ravdanovitz. For the degree of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, Rosamond Mary Allen. Sue Elizabeth Anastasios. Alan Chung Yan Ao. Tai Juan Ao. Fabian Baez. Peter Anthony Bratuskins. Sergei Bromberg. Frank Frederick Buchanan. Stephen Chai. Chu Chi Chuan. Andre Ian Konoyu. Nicole Maureen Curtis. Nancy Min Nguyen Chi Do. Brendan Matthew Doherty. Zev S. Dwieb. Charles Raymond Ellis. John Vincent Endicott. Michael Sean English. Graham David Fleming. Jason Anthony Fletcher. Megan Galbally. Juliet Fiona Gentle. Sonali Ranthika Gunawardena. Andrew Benjamin Green. Emma Catherine Geimer. Hao Li He. Timothy John Hodgkins. Eugene Cho Jin Hong. Alina Isa. Pao-Tang. Joanne Elizabeth Keacher. Mohammed Kika. Robin Lee Kessler. Brian Ming Fat Kong. Martin Christopher Korstra. Peter Luca Konduris. Royhill Ashwan Kumar. Judith Ann Leslie. John Charles William Layden. Victor Yan Lip Liu. Ju Mei Lim. Kelvin Sankian Ma. Vivienne Wing Kit Mark. Maria Manaliadis. Matthew Rodney McCardle. James Angus Meyer Grieve. Sylvia Wei Ying Ng. Fu Ki Nguyen. Amanda Louise Osborne. Chithra Jayanti Raja. Timothy James Ross. Andrew Henry Rotstein. Andrew Lee Rubenfeld. Mark James Ruglis. Martin Rusnak. Stephen Ryan. Hong Shu. Alexander George Sterif. Hee-Hoon Julie Tan. Huang Sin Tan. Adrian Ho Ming Tan. Adrian Ho Ming Tan. Sorry, Tang Lloyd Locking. Timothy Mark Say Ming Voon. Marion Maria Gabrielle Wax. David Richard Williams. Lick Kong Wong. Soteria Zergiotis. For the degree of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery with honours, Nagesh Sadanand Anavekar. Gavin Andrews. Nicole Gay Astley. Gail Elizabeth Orteson. Sean Anthony Beggs. Siobhan Burke. Richard Ian Cathy. Eng Sin Chan. Nicholas Charles Chimes. David John Francis Christie. Tanya Cherie Clifton. Natasha Cook. Natasha Joan Curtin. Alison Maria de Souza. Anna England. Robert Samuel Flank. Su Wei Fo. Wendy Wee No Fu. Rebecca Fradkin. Eli Mark Frank. Justin David Freeble. Kirsten Jane Gordon. Declan John Green. Marie Laura Guizzo. Gregory Abraham Harris. Christine Elizabeth Harvey. Konstantinos Hatzissalatis. Jacqueline Peter Harrington. Susan Yvonne Hiscock. Lydia Grace Johns Putra. Pui Yoki Kan. Elissa Kennedy Smith. Chung Chung Ko. Emily Anna Kotchet. Andrea Mia Krantz. Paula Zoe Laverty. Michael Chung Hang Leung. Kenneth Lim. Mei Ling Lim. Sui Ho Lim. George Lucas. Janine Marie Manwaring. Jeanette Louise Markson. Sarah Constance McGlone. Daniel John McIntyre. Carolyn Meyer. Alison Ann Miller. David Morley. Christina Engmai Yao. Fiona Elizabeth Noble. Rachel Louise Noonan. Christopher James Perry. Stephen Pascali Salerno. Narelle Ann Spencer. Abraham Stephanopoulos. Elvira Elizabeth Stowe. Robert Andrew Swan. Tan Hock Lai. Wee Jean Tan. Bernice Tay. Andrew Alexander Thompson. Vicky Sitimbinis. Parastu Sarah Valet. Edward Alexander David van der Straten. David James Velton. Stephen David Vincent. Anita Bhavani Vinton. Paul Charles Vinton. Emma Warnocky. Michelle Louise Watts. Adam Lawrence West. Kim Roger Whelan. Melissa Jane White. Robert John Whitehead. Jane Louise Williamson. John Tai Hung Wong. Yu Wei Siang. Gershon Jeremy Zilberman. For the Graduate Diploma in Family Medicine, Helen Leslie Bowden. James Edward Turner. Sudhakar Vasudevan. For the Graduate Diploma in Immunology, Rochelle Lisa Waite. For the degree of Master of Child Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy, Mary Ellen Lynch. Georgina Joyce Parker. Ruth Elizabeth Wraith. For the degree of Master of Family Medicine, Jonathan Cohen. For the degree of Master of Psychological Medicine, Miriam Gertrude Kuttner. For the degree of Master of Public Health, Ross McGregor Andrews. Moyneen Ann Curtis. Alexander Hamilton Doole. Darrell Stanley Pedler. Iraine Judith Rassaby. Angela Taft. Bruce Fraser Walker. Elizabeth Barbara Waters. For the degree of Master of Reproductive Sciences, Harold Byrne. Shen Yan. Mary Valiotis. For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and for a thesis entitled The P25 Subunit of Yeast Mitochondrial ATP Synthase, Ashley Lyndon Andrews. This thesis reports studies of a protein subunit of the key enzyme complex that produces energy, ATP, in higher cells, including those of humans. Biochemical analyses have been used to gain insight into the role of this protein in the function and assembly of the enzyme complex in yeast cells. For a thesis entitled The Biology of PC1 Alkaline Phosphodiesterase 1, Sabina Ilaria Belli. This thesis describes an investigation into the structure and function of an enzyme, PC1, which is present on the surface of cells of the immune system, leading to a better understanding of immunity and new ways of detecting diseases that affect it. For a thesis entitled The Novel Actions of Leukemia Inhibitory Factor Transforming Growth Factor Alpha and Interleukin-6 on Skeletal Muscle, John Joseph Bauer. This thesis presents a detailed study of the actions of a number of growth factors which act on skeletal muscle cells, both in the test tube and in the body. Significant new findings have resulted which help our understanding of the growth regulation of this type of muscle during tissue repair and regrowth. These findings are of importance in the treatment and diagnosis of muscular diseases such as the muscular dystrophies. For a thesis entitled The Gastric Hydrogen Potassium ATPase, Judith Mary Callaghan. This thesis describes elegant approaches to investigate a proton pump molecule that is present in the stomach and kidney. Combined biochemical and molecular techniques are used to discover the role of this protein in normal physiology and in autoimmune diseases. For a thesis entitled Studies Using Drugs with Potassium ATP Channel Antagonist Actions, Joanne Leone Challenor-Rogers. This thesis examines the activity of a new class of drug that selectively interacts with potassium ion channels that are located in all cells. These drugs may be used to prevent heart attacks, and they represent a new class of therapeutic agent which may save thousands of lives each year. For a thesis entitled The Interaction Between Xanthines and Drugs Acting at Beta-2 Adrenoreceptors in Uterine and Airway Smooth Muscle, Tracy Ann Gilman. This thesis describes an investigation of a group of drugs related to caffeine which enhance the effect of drugs used in the management of asthma and premature labour. The chemical structure of the xanthine molecule that is important for this effect is established. The results of this investigation may guide future drug developments. For a thesis entitled Investigation of a Novel Molecule and Mechanisms of Platelet Activation, Sean Philip Jackson. This thesis deals with the characterisation of a novel molecule that modulates platelet activation. The molecule has a molecular weight of approximately 175 Daltons and is hydrophilic. The novel molecule appears to modulate platelet aggregation in response to a variety of agonists. The role of von Willebrand factors in the interaction of platelet activity is also examined. Platelet activation mediated by glycoprotein 1b9 is demonstrated to occur independent of ligand binding to glycoprotein 2b3a. For a thesis entitled Reactivity of the Pulmonary Vasculature in Pulmonary Hypertension, Barbara Catherine Kemp. This thesis describes how, for the first time, the development of high blood pressure in the lungs of both humans and conscious sheep affect the way lung blood vessels constrict and dilate. It also describes a potent reserve dilator mechanism which may indicate a new therapeutic target for this life-threatening disease. For a thesis entitled Nutrition and Immune Dysfunction in the Aged, Wijaya Lukito. Nutritional factors contribute to an impairment of several aspects of immune function in the aged, which leads to unfavourable survival outcome. This thesis reports the study of this phenomenon in community and institutionalised aged. For a thesis entitled Determinants of Safety and Efficacy of Bismuth Subcitrate During Anti-Helicobacter Therapy, Maria Assunta Lupino Sorrenti. This thesis documents the plasma accumulation, tissue distribution and pathways of excretion of colloidal bismuth subcitrate in normal and cirrhotic rats, and considers factors influencing potential toxicity. The thesis also examines ways which potentially allow an increase in efficacy of bismuth treatment through modifications of bismuth dosage regimens. For a thesis entitled Endogenous Glucocorticoids and the Control of Inflammation in Rheumatoid Arthritis, Eric Francis Morand. This thesis explores the role of the endogenous anti-inflammatory hormone axis in regulating the processes of joint inflammation in rheumatoid arthritis. Evidence is presented that rheumatoid arthritis is associated with subnormal function of this axis, and the molecular bases of these abnormalities are defined. For a thesis entitled The T-Cell Repertoire in Health and Disease, Helper T-Cell Recognition of HIV-1 Proteins, David Alexander Much. This thesis demonstrates recognition of identical regions of HIV-1 envelope and gag proteins by T-cells from asymptomatic HIV-1 infected and healthy non-infected individuals using novel analytical methods. Thus, cross-reactivity between HIV-1 virus and other common non-pathogenic microorganisms may confer protection against HIV-1 infection in certain individuals. For a thesis entitled Virulence in the Fowl Adenoviruses, Jacqueline Ann Pallister. This thesis describes the identification of the genes causing variations in virulence among fowl adenoviruses. These genes specify proteins which are located on the surface of the virus particles and are responsible for virus attachments to host cells. The results make an important contribution to understanding the mechanisms by which viruses cause disease. For a thesis entitled Lafrance Disease of Agaricus biosporus, the characterisation of mushroom bacilliform virus and the detection of a double-stranded DNA, Peter Andrew Reville. This thesis describes the molecular properties of a novel virus infecting commercially grown mushrooms. The virus is one of a complex of viruses that are detected in diseased mushrooms. The studies have improved our understanding of the evolution of plant and fungal viruses and have provided new tests for the early diagnosis of virus-infected crops. For a thesis entitled Carotenoid Profile and Selected Non-Communicable Disease Risk Factors, Naina Watanapen-Paiboon. This thesis describes the investigation of a serum carotenoid profile and its associations with major risk factors for cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis in Anglo-Celtic Australians. Major factors affecting serum carotenoids were gender, age, body fatness and dietary carotenoid intake. High serum carotenoids were related to decreased risk of cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis. long-term beta-carotene supplementation increased not only beta-carotene but also other carotenoids in serum. However, no effect of a short-term beta-carotene supplementation on bone metabolic activity was observed. For a thesis entitled Pro-opiomelanocortin Gene Expression and Beta-Endorphin Secretion from Hypothalamic Neurons in Culture, Yang-Chi Yu. This thesis examines the functional regulation of neurons producing beta-endorphin in the hypothalamus of the brain. Beta-endorphin is a neurohormone that acts like opioids and modulates pain, stress and reproductive physiology in the central nervous system. In keeping rat beta-endorphin neurons alive in petri dishes over a long period of time, specific steroid hormones related to stress and reproduction were found to enhance the function of these brain cells. Findings from this thesis suggest that abnormal function of these novel and important feedback mechanisms may contribute to infertility caused by stress in the female. For the degree of Master of Surgery and for a thesis entitled Preservation of an Osteomyocutaneous Free Flap in the Rat, Malcolm David Linsell. In reconstructive plastic surgery, particularly following trauma or tumour removal, various combinations of tissues such as skin, muscle and bone can be resected from another part of the body and used to rebuild a defect. The work described in this thesis investigated methods of preserving an osteomyocutaneous free flap so as to offer the surgeon a greater degree of flexibility in the timing and organisation of the appropriate surgical reconstructive procedure. For the degree of Doctor of Medicine and for a thesis entitled Creating a Medical Curriculum Database Using a Combined Relational and Freeform Model for Data Management, Branko-Chesnik. This thesis documents a pioneering approach to the management of a massive amount of detailed and interrelated items of information, both medical and technical, which relate to an undergraduate medical curriculum. The work provides a basic mechanism which links a structured database management system and a free text retrieval system in a manner that can be used by medical educators and by others for curriculum purposes. For a thesis entitled Magnetic Resonance and Intractable Epilepsy, Graham David Jackson. The scope and content of this thesis mark it as an outstanding contribution to new knowledge in the clinical and basic neurosciences. The use of magnetic resonance imaging, and in particular the applications of magnetic resonance spectroscopy to functional studies of the brain in epilepsy, have allowed an identification of the nature of the metabolic changes associated with an epileptic abnormality, an assessment of the feasibility of surgical intervention, and an evaluation of the role of anti-epileptic agents. For a thesis entitled Meeting Challenges in Medical Education, Michael Richard Kidd. This thesis demonstrates significant accomplishments in the development of a computer-assisted learning in clinical medical education, in the organisation, conduct and evaluation of clinical and communication skills training for early year preclinical medical students, and in the development of educational support programs for overseas trained medical graduates. As such, it makes a major contribution to clinical medical education. For a thesis entitled Eosinophils, N3 Fatty Acids and Asthma, Francis Chung Kong Teen. In clinical trials in sufferers from seasonal hay fever and pollen-sensitive asthmatic patients, dietary supplementation with high-dose N3 fatty acids did not attenuate the clinical symptoms of either asthma or hay fever. The reasons for this lack of effect were examined in a cutaneous histopathological model of allergic inflammation and in an in vitro study of eosinophil function. Dietary supplementation with N3 fatty acids did not prevent eosinophil infiltration or the release of inflammatory mediators by eosinophils. Mr. Deputy Chancellor, that concludes the presentation of graduates and diplomates from the Faculty of Medicine.
I now invite the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Professor Porter, to present the candidate for the degree of Doctor of Medicine honoris causa.
Mr. Deputy Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Haryono Siono, who is Minister of State for Population and Family Welfare and Chairman of the National Family Planning Coordinating Board of the Republic of Indonesia. He received his bachelor's degree in statistics from the Academy of Statistics in Jakarta, Indonesia in 1963 and proceeded to undertake graduate studies at the University of Chicago to obtain a master's degree in social sciences and a PhD in sociology. His special areas of interest during his graduate education were communication and social change and population and development. Dr. Haryono has held a large number of influential positions affecting the development of population policy, not only in his own country but internationally. He has travelled the globe to share his knowledge of the role of population in economic development with planning agencies in many governments. He is so well respected that his advice and his experience is sought by the United Nations, by government ministers, by presidents, politicians and policy developers around the world, and especially in developing countries. Within Indonesia, Dr. Haryono has been awarded by the President of the Republic of Indonesia the highest honour available to a civilian in that nation, the Mahupitra Utama Medal, for his work in promoting economic development through family planning programs. He has received a large number of other significant awards in the United States of America and the Philippines for his innovation and vision and his management and leadership in population policy, family planning programs and contributions to economic development. In 1983, he was appointed to the position of Chairman of the National Family Planning Coordinating Board of the Republic of Indonesia. In this most influential role, he reports directly to President Suharto. His personal impact on policy and programs for the management of population could scarcely be overestimated. To give additional emphasis to the importance of this role, in 1993 he was appointed as Minister of State for Population and Family Welfare in the Government of Indonesia. From this basis, he serves as his country's representative on a number of international population programs in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and the International Council for Management of Population Programs, of which he is the present chairman. Among international health providers, Dr. Haryono Siono is well known for his personal, pivotal role in leading Indonesia's hugely successful national family planning programs, which have been styled innovative, grassroots approaches directed to lowering the country's birth rate. As the world's fourth most populous country after China, India and the USA, and the largest Islamic nation, Indonesia is one of the very few countries which have a declared family planning policy. Dr. Haryono engaged religious leaders and members of the community at all levels in a decentralised approach to control of the birth rate. As a result, during the last 20 years, the total fertility rate of the nation has declined by close to 50%. Dr. Haryono was instrumental in setting up the programs which changed the attitudes of village communities so that people accepted that family planning could become part of a local family culture and responsibility. It was not purely a medical problem to be attended to by doctors and clinics. Mr. Deputy Chancellor, in recognition of his internationally significant contributions to family planning, population policy, and the relevance of population policy for economic development, and as a tribute to one of the world's most successful family planners who has translated theory into practice throughout Indonesia, I present to you, for admission to the degree of Doctor of Medicine honoris causa of Monash University, Professor Dr. Haryono Siono.
With the authority of Council, I admit you, Professor Dr. Haryono Siono, to the degree of Doctor of Medicine honoris causa of Monash University. Call upon Professor Dr. Haryono Siono to deliver the occasional address.
Thank you very much.
In thanking Dr. Haryono for that address, which contained an enormous amount of information concerning the Indonesian programs, I would like to make the point, particularly to this group, medical graduates, that it's interesting that we here in the developed world look upon that problem as a medical one. Here is a man who is a mathematical statistician showing so many of the qualities which you are going to have to show in your future professional life, not the least being sensitivity. Sensitivity in how the particularly difficult problem of family planning is promoted in regard to national aspects, religious aspects, personal aspects. It's also interesting that Dr. Harry Ono's approach is essentially one of teamwork and humility, all of which are excellent lessons, and I thank you very much, sir, for your address here today, and we are extremely proud to have had you here on this occasion. This brings us to the end of this ceremony, and speaking for the last time to today's graduates, you are now alumni of Monash University, and Monash is your alma mater. And just as alma mater means foster mother, alumni means, amongst other things, foster children. You therefore remain part of the Monash family, and as with all families, we hope that you, our foster children, will stay in touch with us as we will with you. Join your appropriate alumni association. Grasp the opportunities that will be offered to you for continued contact with the university. Your current training will not last you more than a decade, and you will need to retrain during that time if you are to remain a truly professional practitioner. The Alumni Association assists you in professional and career development, news from Monash, and links with alumni from over 60 countries around the world. I wish you all well. As the academic procession, which now of course includes the new graduates and diplomates, leaves the hall, I would ask members of the audience to remain standing at their seats until all graduates and diplomates have left the hall. Refreshments are being served in the Union Dining Hall, and a warm welcome is extended to you all to join the new graduates there. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you all please stand for the national anthem and for the academic procession?